Alright, so 10.4 is going to be over within the next 20 hours, and if you're thinking the same thing as me, I'm actually really happy because we can move on to bigger, better things, hopefully. I'm waiting for the patch notes to come out within the next couple hours, and then I'm going to be doing a patch review video and everything you should know heading into 10.5. Now, I hope that they address some of the big issues that I'm sure we can all agree have become quite tiresome. Ring of Favor, Erendite, the Golden Neck or Siri Nova decks, just a lot of repetitiveness within the game. But I want to talk about some new creative ideas today, and if you guys are in my server, Qcento's Lounge, if you're not, link is in the description below. My goal is to make this the most active Gwent server available, obviously besides the official Gwent one. However, we've got some really cool tabs within the server. So there's one that we use the Gwent card creator online, and you guys put together some cards that you think would be cool additions to the game, and it's just sort of a fan-made thing. It's nothing official here, but what you guys have done for me is made a completed thread so that I can go and make a YouTube video on it, you see? So here we are, we're making a YouTube video on it. And I haven't seen these cards before, but I'm really looking forward to having a look at them with you guys for the first time here. I want to pull up the actual Discord screen to give credit to the people who made these cool cards, right? They'll probably just tag each other in it or something like that. And yeah. If you guys want to become part of that conversation, you can hop in the server, like I said, link in the description, and we can do a video like this again sometime. I'm sure it'll be great. But for now, let's get into it. First up here, we got Wyvern's Egg, and it's got the Beast category. It has Thrive and Immunity, and starts at 1 base power. Okay, so whenever this unit's Thrive is triggered, damage a random enemy by 1. Okay, so it starts nice and low at 1 base power, which is a little bit of a slow play when you first play the card. But then the ceiling on this is crazy. This can get to like 5, 6, 7 power by the end of a round if you could play this nice and early, right? And immunity, so they can't manually target it. It doesn't protect it from random pings like a Reckless Flurry, Leader Charge, or something like that. But again, there's got to be a little bit of risk associated with playing the card, but enough security to actually want to play it. So that's kind of nicely balanced, I think. And damage enemy unit by 1, so it doesn't mean that we're obviously going to take down base power every time. It could go when it can hit an armor or shield or whatever the case, right? But still, interesting. Could you imagine if you're playing a mirror match too? They put down 1, you put down 1, you Thrive 1, you hit theirs random because immunity. That could be kind of interesting actually. But I think this card is really sweet. I'm a little bit worried that it's a little bit slow, but once you get these things going, they're feeling pretty good, I think. Right? Because you can definitely Thrive this quite a bit. Beast is interesting. It contributes to that archetype a little bit. I feel like it's been ignored, so it's nice to see there. And I wonder if there's going to be some supporting cards down below. But so far, that's really cool. There's a lot of Thrive stuff that you could do with monsters, so I'm excited that this is something that was made in this little theory craft. And moving on to the second one, here we got Raven Whisperer. This one's a human and a mage, and it has Assimilate. So something to support Nilfgaard Double Cross Assimilate, because maybe they need a couple more Assimilate units. If you think about it right now, you got the mages in the Bronze End, right? They got Assimilate. Maybe sometimes you'll see a Diviner teched in. You got the Brathens, the Vigo, and the Terra Nova, but beyond that, there's not really a whole lot of units with the Assimilate tag in a modern Assimilate list. Maybe before in the past they would have had the Portal Assimilate, and you might be bringing out more of those 4Ps, but Ducals and stuff like that, a little bit slow in the meta right now. So this card here brings out 3 engines, right? This one here summons 2, 1 on either side. You got 3 for 5 provision. That's wild. Now, they come out vulnerable at 1, but you could buff these up. Like, you could take Leader Charge the same turn. You can go and click Mushy Truffle the same turn. Maybe you have Damien Dulator floating on the board. You could do like a double proc with 2 leaders. Like, there's so many things you could do. Imagine even having 2 of them. Imagine playing this deck against a Nilfgaard Mirror, and you guys are just trading copies with Informants, making copies of this, the coups coming off these. Like, the board would be stuffed. but it would be a different kind of match. And I think that that match would be so frustrating that maybe this wouldn't take over the meta, right? Because people wouldn't want to play the mirror match. This card's really sweet. I like it quite a bit. Big fan. Next up here, we got Whole Bandit Package made by Marzi. Final, probably. Well, Marzi can let me know if this is the final version, but I'm going to assume at this point that it is. It looks pretty well constructed. We've got Spala Castle, and this here is a scenario that obviously dooms, progresses whenever we play a bandit. We'll make it a bit bigger here. Prologue, spawn an Iron Falcon infantry and give it 1 armor. So we got the 1 point per turn engine that's got the armor to turn it online. I like this. That's actually like the perfect way to start a scenario, right? With a little engine. Chapter 2, choose an allied unit and an enemy unit. Deal damage to the enemy unit equal to the amount of the allied unit's armor. So, at a first glance, this doesn't really look that good, but I looked ahead really quickly right before I clicked it, and this looks incredibly interesting. Like, look at this. So, Gascon's Brosart, Human Bandit, choose a unit on the battlefield, gain armor equal to the base power of the chosen unit. So, if we play this to trigger Chapter 2 of Spala Castle, then we get huge damage swings, which is unbelievable. And then for any excess, we have the Barricade at the end of your turn, damage self by 2, and spawn a Hound on the row. So we're trading up there as well, because we'll still have some maybe leftover armor kicking around, and then we just chipping off that armor before going into the base power and getting these Hounds. Let alone, we can also keep padding it with armor from other cards potentially, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we can do with this to keep it going as an active engine. I think that's really cool. And I don't even think that this is overpriced or anything like that, because bandits right now have nothing. The only concern that I would have is when you introduce like a combo like this that could work quite well in just about any deck, given that it's neutral, you might find yourself playing against matchups where maybe it just gets repetitive. Maybe a lot of people are running the same sort of combo. However, I'm open for it at this point. Really, I like scenario play. I think scenario play is actually pretty fun. Regardless of, you know, it feeling somewhat repetitive. I think that this would play quite well into Nilfgaard Assimilate too, because you're creating and playing some things. You could do like a Dwarf hybrid deck with this. That's pretty cool, right? Dwarves pad bunches of armor, you know, Irish Shades, really cool kind of fit that you can cram into something like this too at the end of the day. So that's really cool. We've got Spala Scout. There's a whole package for the bandits. Holy. Spala Scout, Human Bandit, deploy, give 1 armor to an allied unit. Order, damage a unit by 1, increase the damage to 3 if you have a bomb in your hand. Deathblow, spawn a Gascon's Hound in the row. So let's have a look here. We get to give armor to an allied unit, so something that's already in play. Then we get to damage by 3, probably, because we're going to be looking to hold a bomb at this point, right? We have bomb heavers. Maybe this brings Maddock back, you know, stuff like that. Gives a bit more value to power crept Maddock, because I don't think that that's really been in play as much over the last few months, especially. It just feels like a little bit slower of a play. This could revitalize it. Damage by 3 if you have a bomb in hand. So we're getting 3 plus an armor. Death blow, we've got the Hound. So 3, 6, 9 potentially if we're holding bomb, plus the armor. I think that that's probably like the coolest neutral card that exists right now, pretty much. Like, that's a bandit, right? The bandit bronzes are horrendous. This would be a huge addition to the archetype in general, and I don't think it's overpriced. I think it works out quite well. It's pretty flexible, but it is 5 provisions, so you have to think twice before you add 2 of them. But you can definitely build a deck in around these things. I think that's really cool. Let's have a look here. Gascon Agitator. So Human Bandit, deploy, spawn 1 Gascon's Hound. Okay. Zeal, order, give all Gascon's Hound on this row. Order, damage 1 to a unit. Deal 1 damage to a unit. So we get to choose. It's like Revenants. Little Revenants, right? So we have cards that spawn these through Scenario, right? Through Brossard's passive. And then we've got the Scout Deathblow that does it. Which this reminds me of, these look like they're modeled off Deadeyes, by the way. Just a little bit. And then you got this that's like a payoff card. Just dealing damage. That's really cool. And then we got Recruitment. I want to know who did that art. That's beautiful. Nice scroll there. We got a legendary 10 provision card. Play a bronze bandit unit or bomb from your deck. If it's a bandit unit, boost adjacent units by the amount of armor it has. If it's a bomb, give adjacent units bleeding equal to its provision cost. That's cool. Let's say we're playing Northern Wind, 5 provision. We play that bomb, we get the Maddock out, and then we get 5 bleeding on adjacent units. Now, obviously it has to, we have to set that up, right? But it's a good payoff if it works, and for 10 provision, I think that's quite reasonable. This whole package here, I'd be making a deck tier, like the day 1 of patch. I think that's awesome. So I'm liking this quite a bit. I don't think it's overtuned. I don't think it's underwhelming. CDPR, if you're watching this, let's make these cards happen. And moving on to the next one here. Steve was the one who suggested doing this thread in the Discord, and I'm really glad that we got it going so far. So let's have a look at what Steve has for us. All right, so we got Final Charge, which is a raid, but it's also an artifact. And this one here, deploy, deal 1 damage to every enemy unit on the board. Deathblow, deal 1 damage to a random enemy unit. Now, this card looks very scary, especially for 6 provision, if we play the Warlords times like 2 or even times 4. If you think about it, okay, let's say we play 2 Warlords only, right? We're getting 3 damage when we play this card to everything the opponent has, and then on Deathblow we're dealing, I'm assuming it's just 1 instance of Deathblow, not every one. Then we're dealing 3 damage. Well, we're increasing, yeah, by 2. So deal 3 damage to a random enemy unit. So it's like basically going for everything they've got, and then maybe 1 thing survives, and then this just takes it out as well. Could you picture this card against like Deadeye Ambush? It would basically like shut that whole deck down in this 1 6 provision card. So extremely busted. The only thing I'm a little bit confused about is with the artifact, and it has a deploy. I'm just wondering what the order is. If maybe we float the card and this is the order Zeal instead of deploy, which makes kind of sense to me. But maybe you can confirm. But that's a really, really strong card. I think you can even add a couple provisions here, right? There's no problem adding like 2, 3 provisions to this card, because even when it doesn't work well, it's still going to work quite well. So with that being said, sick card. Just worried about it being too strong. Now we've got another one here. That's interesting. We got Dwarf and Relict. So deploy, give a random allied unit vitality for 3 turns. Barricade. Whenever an allied unit's vitality is triggered, boost a random unit in your hand or deck by 1. So we get 10 provisions, 4 base power, engine. Whenever an allied unit's vitality is triggered, boost a random unit in your hand or deck by 1. So it's like a random boost off the top. It's kind of like a Dunka and like an All God merged into 1 card. If you think about it, you're doing hand buffs, but then you're doing, deck buffs. I think that's really sick. I'm a big fan of the carryover type of play. I just don't know if this would get the most value, because obviously if I see it, I'm going to answer it 4 base power, 2 armor. is kind of an issue. Even if I can't kill the card, I could definitely take the armor off. So they must have some things that are in place to help keep armor on. Obviously, dwarves have a little bit easier time with this, right? We've got like the miners that do 4 armor. You've got a stratagem that you can even play to get it done. You've got tempering that could be quite nice. This starting in the deck makes it 3 armor, because if you play it with Mahakam Forge, I could see it getting some pretty good value. This would demand some removal that maybe, if you're using it on this, then cards like Brewer and other parts of dwarves would stick. I don't know if dwarves need a huge buff or anything like that, but this is like a really interesting card that doesn't just scream dwarves only to me, right? It's got dual tags, which is kind of interesting for many different types of decks, right? Within scoia'tael, because the more tags, the better, more or less. It just gives you variety in what you can do. So that's a pretty cool card. I don't think it's overpowered at 10. I think it has some pretty cool design. And with it boosting stuff in deck too, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be pulling the cards that you boost, right? So that's kind of like the conflicting part about it. The part that makes it okay, that's fair, right? Is that we might be just buffing stuff for the sake of buffing stuff, right? Got next one here. Sheridan. Deploy. This looks like a new mechanic you guys made. So deploy, mark an enemy unit, gain zeal if your opponent controls the highest unit on the board. Order, damage marked enemy by 1, cooldown 1. Death blow, boost this card by half of destroyed unit's base power, then mark the highest enemy unit, right? This reminds me of like the Witchfinder for Syndicate, but with a new mechanic. So mark is whenever this unit takes damage, half its current power. That's actually busted. 9 provision, okay. It's like a removal engine that just like lets us trade up on every ping. Because look, whenever this unit takes damage, half its current power, if I mark something and then use Precision Strike Leader, I'm just doing 1 damage, right? Or even Skellige, if I'm floating boats and I'm just using a ping or Bruck for hunters or something like that. You mean to tell me that 1 ping can half something's armor? Or a power, rather? It's busted. This should be like 13, guys. 13 provisions, come on. 14. Like... 14, almost. At least 12. It's up there, it's not 9. Adrenaline 4, increase order damage by 1. You see, it gets even better. That's interesting, though. I like the card, I think it's sick. Witchers, there's really not like a lot of super cool Witchers in the top end that, you know, are engines or anything like that. So at least this has like, you know, its deployability, and then it's got some other stuff to keep it interesting and going. This could be really good in a lot of decks. Obviously being a really good one for Skellige Witchers too. But scoia'tael Witchers could be really good. I don't know about Northern Realms as much because the damage pings are harder to come by, but even then they have some with the Griffin Witchers, right? So, sweet card. We got Meditation. Replay an allied Witcher. Guys, you know this is going to be busted, right? Okay, we got 2 overtuned cards back to back. So, you're basically... Okay, for 9 provisions, now we're getting a second Igni. Or we're getting a second Yurden. Or we're getting another Ciri if they purify it. Or... whatever the case, like, this is looking pretty sharp. Replay an allied Witcher, so what, we get a second Erland? Wow. Arnagod's down to 1 power, we just can replay him? Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if this was printed, I'd want it to be playable, so I don't necessarily want it to be super high provisions, but I'm telling you guys, this has to be like 12. It's gotta be 12. At least. And so next up here we got Deidre, which is a human and druid. And on deploy, we destroy all allied crows. For each allied crow destroyed, gain 1 charge and damage a unit by 2. So we're getting basically a charge of damage unit by 2, and the charge amount varies. So it's turning points on our side of the board into controlled removal, which is pretty good. Adrenaline 3 gain Zeal. We'd probably want Zeal with this card, otherwise we're just losing points, and then that's it, right? Because they'll answer that and get such a good trade up that we have to play it in around Adrenaline. What's nice about this, though, is that before we play it, we could potentially purify all the crow tokens, and then we can basically have them in our graveyard, and we can play that other card that's like boost self by every beast in graveyard or whatever the case may be. So we can get some additional payoff from it besides just the damage, and then that kind of synergy could make this card very interesting, right? So card artwork's amazing. The card cost, I think, is reasonable because it can get some really good payoff if it works. Base power is pretty good. I don't have a problem with this one here. I think it requires just enough setup to make it like really interesting, and if it does work, then it could do quite well, and it's not impossible to set up. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. We got Royal Courage coming up next here. It's an artifact that has resilience. Now 7 provisions, cool. Order heal an allied unit and give it vitality equal to the amount it was healed. Charges 3. How much are we healing though? We've got, let's say we heal something by 2. So we're healing by 2 and giving 2 vitality. And we're doing that 3 times. So you could maybe milk like 12 points out of this thing, right? 4, 4, 4. You know, this is not bad if you're playing against, like, if you must have things inspired and you're having a difficult time doing it because you're playing a control, this could be kind of good, right? Because I'm not saying the ceiling's 2. It could be very well anything that you've got. The only thing that I think is going to be difficult with Northern Realms is they want to focus on getting a lot of carryover and boosts. So it's just about, okay, if something's not boosted, then it could just be its base power. And if it's not its base power, we actually want things to be injured in order to make this work. So at that point, you know, it might be kind of awkward to roll out, but it does have a pretty good payoff. I think that this would be more one of those cards that you'd make a deck around to get the best value from it. But all in all, it's a cool principle, right? We've got a new Detlef. Okay, this is interesting. Cool artwork as well. This card starts in your graveyard. So it's an automatic fin. Whenever you apply bleeding to an enemy unit, remove a counter from this card. When the counter reaches 0, summon this card from your deck to the melee row and trigger all remaining bleeding. This card starts in our graveyard. Do we have to put it back in deck? I think they meant to say graveyard. So yeah, if the card starts in graveyard, then we summon from graveyard. When played or summoned from your graveyard, gain doomed. Yeah, that's what they mean. So basically what we're doing is we're applying bleeding 10 times. Then this card swings out from grave. Right? And then we get to trigger all remaining bleeding. See, that's huge, because what that means is like we can essentially just go and like all those slow plays are now sped up, right? All those, everything's got 3 bleeding, but there's only 1 turn left in the round. Nah, it's out of the question, because now we're going to be able to proc everything in one big swing. So do vampires need the card? I think non-devotion vampires would like it quite a bit. I think devotion vampires have Unseen Elder, which helps because they're able to trigger it on the same turn, but I still feel like you'd run both in either. For 10 provisions, it fills a spot that, like, for vampires, I think it's a very good spot, right? Oriana, Catechin, and stuff like that. You can cut stuff like that and just put this and have this working with the bronzes. I like this card quite a bit. I think that this card would get nerfed if they brought it out at 10 provisions, though. It feels like because we're getting the thin, and then we're getting the summon, and then we're getting the proc, it's kind of like, it reminds me of a Riohan mixed with a King of Beggars. If that makes sense, right? Riohan killing all the remaining, but like the carryover thing that like a Cobb would do. Let me know what you guys think about this one here. I think it's strong. I think it's very strong. But it doesn't mean I don't like it. It's very strong. We got Wendigo. This looks interesting. We got a new relic. I like relics. Damage all units on the enemy row by 1. So you pick a row, damage all by 1. Whenever an allied unit's Death Wish is triggered, damage a random enemy by 2. So this is a relic that can go in both situations. It sort of promotes you playing Death Wish. And I think that's actually pretty healthy for the game, bringing in these two types together more, right? It might make you say, well, you know, maybe we put a few more relics in the Death Wish deck and make it work. But you don't really need more relics. This could just be straight up in Death Wish, right? Yeah. 5 provision, 4 base power. Damage all units on an enemy row by 1. So let's just say you put this down, 4 base power, the row stuffed at 9. You've got 13 right there, plus engine. 13 plus engine. Why would anybody play Werecat when you can run 2 of these? Cool card. Strong card. I don't think it's overly conditional either. Like, I think it's something that you can run, and it would just be a good wide tech anyways. And let's say they have 3 or 4 cards on a row. You don't even care. Like, even if you're not playing Death Wishes, like, let's say they have 5 cards on the row. 9 for 5 still. You see? Like, without the second clause. So I'd be running these in most of my monster decks. This against Arrakis Swarm would clean them up. Right? Let's have a look at the next one here. Cursed Soul. It's a spell. Okay. So cast Rupture on an enemy unit. We're bringing Rupture to non-devotion, guys. Death Blow. Return a card to your hand and game doomed. Your opponent draws a card. So cast Rupture on an enemy unit. If the Rupture, I guess, Death Blows that. Return a card to our hand and game doomed. Your opponent draws a card. So it would be this card, we return it to our hand, right? So we get to do this twice. So everyone's just running Purifies. I think that this card's very well balanced because there's not an actual body to the card, right? And you get the opportunity to do a lot of damage, but it still gives the opponent a chance to answer it, right? They can put a shield on it, they can boost it, they could purify whatever unit has Rupture. It's not like it's automatically going to do something and there's nothing you can do about it, right? You could put armor on it. So I think that's pretty sweet. And getting to do it again makes it kind of worth it. Again, there's no guarantee you get value the first time, so you might not get it back. But if you get value both times, then you just rolled really well. I mean, it plays in around the same provisions as Turgvi, but now it maybe makes you want to consider playing a deck that's surrounded with Turgvi and something like this, and kind of just doing like a Rupture deck. I think that Rupture is a little bit underplayed because you're only having one card that's doing it. So Corrupted Soul, very sweet. Lippy's Treasure. Doomed. If this card is played or summoned, reduce every card's Bloodthirst value by 1. It's raid and it's an artifact. Devotion. Summon self from your deck to a random allied row. Zeal, order, play a bronze bloodthirst unit from your deck or graveyard and increase its base power by 2. Wow, so let's take this in here. It's raid and it's a artifact. And it's doomed. So basically we're going to be playing this in Devotion. Okay? Now it's going to basically summon itself to our row because of Devotion. And then play a bronze. We just click it and play a card. So we get a thin plus we're playing a bronze. And then we're able to increase its base power, which then acts as carryover for War of Clans, for Fukusha, for, Herald. Like, this card's pretty wild. Thin, carryover, and thin. It's like a double thin and carryover. I'd be running this in every deck. That's like, Libby's got some good treasure. So strong. Like, obviously you're limited to what you can pull, but I think that's really easy to play around. This would basically, reduce the need for running as much discard stuff, right? Because it still has some good tempo to it. Broccolon's Ancient. I mean, the artwork for this looks pretty sweet. So we got another artifact. So this would be like a whole artifact set by the looks of it. Basically, doomed if this card's played or summoned. Increase every card's harmony value by 1. Wherever they are. So hand, grave, deck, you name it, right? Devotion, summon self from your deck to a random allied row. Zeal, order, spawn an ancient branch and play a harmony bronze from your deck. So this ancient's branch, I can't read what it says. It says token doomed harmony. I'm gonna say it's probably Treant, right? It's gotta be. So basically we got Treant and then we start playing in around that. That's cool. We were just talking about how harmony needed something. To be able to increase the values would help with the tempo of that deck quite a bit. You're encouraged to play Devotion so it doesn't get out of hand when you have like this plus any whatever in season broken neutral card that they put, and then you're just getting the play started right away. And this kind of plays, like, I'm looking at the added perks that you get here and I'm comparing it to the first one. Obviously I think that control is the way to go. Like, control weighs over most, but they're both getting equal payoffs, and who's to say it's this match against this match every match, right? So I think that that's pretty cool. We've got Brewis' Supper. Wow. If this card is played or summoned whenever you play a bronze Deathwish unit, trigger its Deathwish ability. Devotion, summon this card from your deck to this row. Order, play a bronze Deathwish from your deck. This one will be the most abused one, right? Because here's the thing, like, if this card's played or summoned whenever you play a bronze Deathwish unit, trigger its Deathwish ability. Devotion, Harpies. You've got, it's not all that bad. 11 provision. Yeah, okay. If they limit it to bronze, that's pretty good, because you can get like Harpy eggs going online. You can get like Rod Fiends. You could do a couple things like that, right? But then you run out of bronze Deathwish cards to play, and that's it. And this doesn't have resilience, so it's only good for the first round. So it helps you play a first round, but that's it, right? You're not taking it with you. You're not doing anything crazy. It doesn't really have anything to do with like gold, so you can't really go and do like something spam decks, like using the Arrakis Queen and doing all that. So this is pretty interesting. The fact that it's an organic, I don't know if that itself has a lot of synergy with Deathwish, but what else would you call it? So organic makes sense, I guess, right? We got Hasty Charge, which is Warfare, and it's another artifact. If this card's played or summoned, give Zeal to all bronze units in your deck. and graveyard. Devotion, summon self from your deck to a random allied row. Zeal Order, play a bronze unit with order from your deck, and then transform. Charge. Goes to Triumph. That's cool. So, Warfare, Doomed, Zeal Order. Give Zeal to an allied unit and boost it by 2. Okay, so this gives basically Zeal to all bronze units in the deck. And then this gives to any unit that we choose. So like a Selkirk, this could get kind of... There's no way to stop this, right? You can give like Radovid, whatever you got to do. You just use... This could be abused. Like, I'm looking at all of them here. I mean, okay. Like, this could be abused. This is okay. But I think that, like, this can get abused in some cases, but I think that, like, it's engine-based, so it's a little bit more difficult to get abused. This could get abused. This could get abused. This is wild. You don't need a Daiko anymore if you have something like this in your deck, right? We got a couple more from this little sub-series, right? Mange's Grave, Witch Hunter. I'm excited right away off that. Whenever you deal excess damage, gain coins equal to the excess damage dealt. If this card's played or summoned from your deck, gain 1 coin for each 2 unique gangs in your deck. You won't have too many if you're playing Witch Hunters. Devotion, summon self from your deck to an allied row. Zeal Order, play a bronze Witch Hunter from your deck, then give bounty to an enemy unit. So you can bring out like an Executioner and give bounty to a unit, and then we can get a bit of profit here. So if played or summoned from your deck, gain 1 coin for every 2 unique gangs in your deck. Well, what, you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 coins, right? So you get a few coins, you'll play a bronze, and you'll give something bounty. And then you'll get this added whenever you deal excess damage. I don't think we're going to be doing a lot of excess damage, but it's possible that we take Freak Show or something like that, and we do 1 excess damage to a couple cards. At least we're getting that spillover back. Maybe with paydays, that could be pretty nasty too. You take a payday on a cut, like a token, and then you get this card too, and then payday's passive, you could fill up your bank. That's pretty cool. Anything for Witch Hunters, I'm about it. I really like playing bounty that way. It's it feels good that the deck's getting closer towards being just a full-on Witch Hunter. Obviously right now carried by Firesworn bronzes, but that might help it actually get back on track. It'll speed up some of the tempo from cards like Vigilante though, right? Cards that I don't otherwise want to play because they feel kind of slow playing. Search and Imprison, the last one of this little mini-series. So Devotion, summon self from your deck to a random allied row. Zeal Order, draw 3 cards and play 1. Discard 1 and swap 1 with the enemy's top deck card, then transform. Nope. No, we're not doing this. No. Burn. This, you guys know I don't like manipulation with the opponent's decks. So discard 1 is fine. You could play 1, that's fine. But when you start swapping them is when I have to put a hard stop on it. What does it transform into at least? Torture. This is already torture if you think about it. We have Order, play a bronze agent or mage from your deck. I like this. Like, that's cool. It's just this swapping thing could be bad. I mean, it could work against them too, but there's so many ways for Nilfgaard to move something to the top of their deck or move something to the top of your deck, right? Especially when you play this with their location, they can like actually put something there for you that they want to play, right? So I don't know. There's so many different ways to go about doing that they can manipulate that quite well. Now, it would make for good content. It would make for funny games, but it would make for frustrating ones, I think, if you played this on the ladder time and time again. What do you guys think about this card? This could be the most controversial card yet in the fantasy patch that we've seen. And I'm getting frustrated about this last little part as if the card was real. And I gotta remind myself that these aren't real cards just yet. Next up here we got Swamp Beast, which is another monsters card, and he says it's completed, I think. We'll see for ourselves here. Order on melee, boost self by 0. At the end of each player's turn, increase this value by 1 if Thrive of an allied unit was triggered this turn. Barricade. Units played by your enemy can now trigger units Thrive. Let's think about it this way. Increase value by 1 if Thrive was triggered this turn. If the opponent is triggering Thrive, then it's not on our turn, which ultimately makes our Thrive harder to trigger for this card. So the boost might not be the reason why you play it. It might actually just be the fact that they could trigger Thrive as well, bringing up our curve faster, right? So, interesting card. I just don't know if this is adding a whole lot to it. I think that Barricade should also have to deal with maybe the opponent triggering would also make it so that this counter goes up too, right? Barricade units played. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then just add that extra clause for this working. But that little adjustment could make the card really good for 9 provisions, right? Now, keep in mind, if they're triggering Thrive, and we're triggering Thrive, it doesn't mean that we're doing more than we could before. It just means that we're getting to where we need to be faster, right? And this Swamp Serpent plays really cool with, if I can scroll up far enough, things like the Wyvern's Egg, right? Because we're getting that extra faster proc. So I think that's sweet. Moving on to Cursed Assassin. Okay. Disloyal with 2 power. Interesting. Deploy, give doom to adjacent units. This is good for status guard, isn't it? Death Wish, damage adjacent units by 2. How would you kill it? You'd have to, okay, this goes over, gets spying, maybe it plays with the enforcers, or maybe you go and you take like a mage infiltrator, try to snipe it. I don't think you'd want to do that. I think you'd want to use pings, right? Yeah, take something that can store pings, whether it be a Thanid Turncoat, right? You just have that ticking down, killing this off, or you've got, I mean, Ku would do it. Ku would actually be pretty good here too, right? But, yeah, the enforcers would be pretty sweet. Either of those. I think this card's fine. You're giving doom to things that's helping with status guard. Getting lots of tags, of status out there for future plays. You're giving stuff doomed so we don't have to see the same old decks being recycled between rounds. And then it's got this nice little passive, damage adjacents by 2. It's a risk. It requires a lot of setup. This is a very intricate card, I think. I'm excited about it. If this was a thing, I would play it. I definitely think I can make it work. Worst case scenario, we just give them 2 free points and give 2 dooms. So that's what I'm talking about. The risk and reward factor is definitely there. We've got Change of Plan, which is a warfare card. Transform all commando blue stripes into merciless commandos without changing their power. Okay, so this is introducing something completely different. I kind of wish I saw this one before I saw this one. But we've got Merciless Commando. Damage an enemy unit by 2. Death Blow, reset the order ability. Wow. Okay, so I'm thinking about something here. Let's say we go and we play a whole row of commandos, right? And then we do a whole row of commandos again in a bleed in round 2. And then we get to round 3, and then we basically flip them all, and we renew the Pavetta and bring them all out again. And then we just get damage for all this. Death Blow, reset order ability. Holy. This is sick. Honestly, I'm not even against it. Just because I feel like Drog often doesn't work the way we want it to work with this play. But this is okay. Deathblow Reset is kind of scary. Because you can put a couple siege engines in there and chip things down so everyone's a Deathblow. Wow. Yeah, like this second part could just be bad. I don't think it needs the death blow. I think it just needs the damage by 2. That feels fine for me. Kind of. Actually, you know what would be better? Instead of death blow reset, death blow boost self by 1 I think is reasonable. Cuz resetting getting 2 extra damage is kind of wild. But yeah, like a reset by 1 or boost by 1 is fine, because then you could set it up with just about any deck that does some kind of like boost play as well. I think there'd be some good synergy there with Meave or with, you know, Lyrian Scytheman or something like that too, right? Yet again, it should be completed. We don't know. Right away, I see something really sick. The effort on this one looks crazy. We got a whole scenario revolving around Frighteners. So, progress whenever you play an Insectoid. Okay, now for you guys looking for Insectoid buffs, this could just be the savior, right? Spawn Frightener's Egg on this row, which is new. Counter 3, when you spawn an Insectoid, reduce the counter by 1. When the counter reaches 0, transform into a Frightener's Prole. Veil, Thrive, consume an Insectoid on the row, cooldown 1. If it consumes an Insectoid, then obviously it doesn't really benefit for the Thrive, but the consuming Insectoids help reduce the chance of us clogging up our row. So I think that's a really cool added bonus there for row management. Now, spawn 3 drones, yeah. And an egg, okay. Spawn and play spontaneous. Man, this is really cool. Like, I would rock this in a Glusty deck. 100% Glusty Frightener, Frightener's Nest. It adds to the whole unitless nonsense, right? Like, this pops out too, which is another artifact. This pops out, which is fine. At least it's got Veil, so it's like a little bit more difficult to interact with. Consume an Insectoid on the row cooldown 1 could help engine other stuff. Like, it could engine like a She-Troll or like a Varan Warrior or something like that, right? So that's interesting. Yeah, I'm about it. I think that's really cool. We got the yearly tourney. Okay. Another scenario for Nilfgaard. I like the double scenario things. Like having 2 per faction could be actually very good. Progress whenever you play a unit from another faction. Wow. Just crazy amount of assimilate procs here. Spawn and play Imperial Diplomacy. Diplo, okay. So basically this card's going to be creating a card that creates a card. And then we got Chapter 1, play a Dryad, Warrior, Witch Hunter, Beast, or Siege Engine from another faction. That's cool. It's kind of focusing on the main types. And then Chapter 2, spawn and play a Runestone of choice. Okay. I like that because it gives you more of a reason to run Rune Mage. Right? It kind of has the added synergy there. I like that they at least said, you know what? Because it's Nilfgaard, we got to make it 15 provisions compared to... Okay, this is 15 as well. Wait, then this is 10? It's not the same person, is it? No, it's not. Because I was going to say, like, this is, like, so cheap compared to these. But, yeah. I think that's, like, when you compare the two, I would say this one's probably going to be stronger than this one, but this one's more interesting. But either way, I think if they were both in the game, it wouldn't be too bad. Nilfgaard's receiving a lot of nerfs to the provisions too. Like with the leader ability, Double Cross got the 2 provision nerfs. Ku recently got nerfed. Terra Nova a few patches back got the provision nerfs. So there's a lot of things that would make this card not as busted as it would have been back in the day. So not bad. The Wrong Shipwreck. Blow this one up a little bit here. We got some new stuff going on. Whenever you play a unit with Horde, the units played by the scenario don't trigger its chapters. That's important to know. Spawn and play Shipwreck Salvager. Okay. Human Pirate Tide Cloak. Whenever you play a Horde unit, gain 1 coin. Deploy, gain 2 coins. Horde 4, gain 4 coins. Now, keep in mind that this will be reduced if you're playing Hidden Cache, because Horde values are reduced by 2. So this would be literally Horde 2, gain 4 coins. Fee 1, give Vitality to an allied unit. So it's a spender that profits. I'd love to know if it has a provision with it. Shipwreck Salvager, like maybe that this is like a scenario exclusive play, right? Like maybe it's like a token, because it's not showing a price. I hope that it would be a token. Running these, I would just be slapping them in every single Syndicate Bronze End deck, right? But really cool. So Chapter 1, gain 6 coin. Chapter 2, spawn Sewer Raider on the top of your deck. Then spawn and play a copy of it. Ignore its horde cost. So you're basically putting a Sewer Raider on the top of your deck, then playing another one. So you're able to basically go and take that one and bring out 3. Which makes the Thin actually very cool, right? So you're getting the 4, you're getting 16 points swing off that, plus 6 coin, plus this here. I think that this card's sweet. I think that this card could be played in Hidden Cache quite well. I think it could be played in, honestly, pretty much everything. But I'd be really tempted to go in with a full-out Pirate's Cove, you know, type thing, right? We get tons of coin from this scenario. We can start playing our Jackals from Leader and stuff like that, and just really go all pirates with it. I'm a big fan of that card. I think that's great. Initiation, this one looks terrifying. Now, it's not as expensive, which makes me wonder why. Initiation scenario. Progress when you reach the specified amount of self-damage. Self-damage must be dealt before turn end. The cards played by the scenario don't trigger its chapters. So we got Spawn and play as Fallblood Initiated, which is a Beast and Cultist, and damage self by 3, so it's going to 4. When you damage an allied unit on this row, heal self by 1, okay. Berserk 2, gain order, damage an allied bronze by half its base power, then damage an enemy by the same, or by the amount of self damage dealt. Wow, this reminds me of like a Nut Callus play, but like a bronze one. That's cool, with only 1 order. Chapter 2. Wait, Chapter 1, 4. Spawn and play Hermit. Oh, okay, you got choices. Right? Wait, no, Prologue, you get this. Chapter 1, oh, okay. Spawn and play Hermit. I see. And then Chapter 2, Hermit's that bronze card that does self-damage, right? And then Chapter 2, I'm just not sure what the 4 and 7 are. Heal 2 bronze units, then boost them by half the amount they were healed. At least it could be bronze, right? Now, you could do a lot of different things. You could do like the veterans. Other than that, you just put down something like these. Initiated could be really good for that play too, right? So yeah, I could see why this one's not as expensive, because this one involves damaging your own units, which I think if this costed any more, then it would be hard to play. Like harder to play at least, because you'd have to worry too much about keeping your things alive. Interesting. I think it's really sweet. Now we got March, which is another scenario for Northern Realms, and progress whenever you play a unit with order. So Prologue, spawn Lyrian Cavalry on this row. Okay. Chapter 1, boost a unit in your deck by 5, Archgriffin, right? Chapter 2, spawn and play War Plans, then gain order. Reset an allied bronze's unit's order. Spawn and play a bronze unit with order from your starting deck. You're creating additional copies of. This is sweet. I think this is really cool. It's helping with soldiers in a way that we don't have. However, I worry that this will get abused with mages. Spawn and play a bronze unit with order from your starting deck. That's an alumni right there. Right? And let's say they have... Yeah, that's an alumni. And if this is actually a card on top of the scenario, like not just the scenario exclusive play, and you could put these like in a 5 provision slot, have 2 of these, that would be horrible. But for now, I think it's a token play because there isn't a provision. But you know, like if this gave them an alumni though, and it was 15 provisions for the set, like I don't think it would be that big of a deal. I think you can do a lot with this card. I don't think it's busted. I think it's just good. And then we got Brokilon's Ancient Tree. You guys, this one's for the tree huggers, including myself. I got the most scoia'tael wins out of any faction. So we got scenario, progress when you play a harmony unit. The scenario's played units don't trigger its chapters. So prologue, spawn, and play half-fledged Dwan on this row. It's a token, 5 power token. And then chapter 1, spawn and play a bronze unit from your starting deck. That's very flexible. And then chapter 2, play a bronze unit from your deck, then trigger all allied units' harmony abilities. Okay, this one is like the savior of harmony. Look, so half-fledged Dwan, 5 power harmony. Done. Then we get to play a bronze from our deck, and then we get to play a bronze and then trigger. Yeah, like this is enough to actually save harmony, because I think we have... There was something that I was looking at earlier. If I can find it. Brokilon's Ancient, right? This, you stack this card with the scenario, you get the 2 scenarios going on, and you could fit it, right? And it allows you to play some like more inexpensive harmony. Like you could put like the fledglings like at 4 power and not have to worry about taking portal or something like that, because you could just literally play them off this and proc them. So 100. Who else liked it? Steve. Yeah, no, it's a good card. Next we got Alpinicus, which is a beast. Boost self by 1 each time you consume a unit. Increase the boost by 1 wherever the card is. It's 9 provision, which makes it quite interesting because you could take a renew on this if you want. Zeal. Order, boost self by 1. How many times are you going to do it? It's whenever we consume a unit. This would be crazy in like a V deck, because we're just play, consume, right? This would be good in like a K-Ren Ruin deck, perhaps. This might be very good because it's Zeal Order. This consume could be very good in, let's say... Where's that one? It was the Frightener's Nest, because look, consume an insectoid. That's sick. Like, that's actually very strong. You know what the crazy part is? This actually feels like a real expansion, because whoever was putting this together, like, they sort of fed off each other's ideas by the looks of it, like making counters and making synergy. So really interesting. We got Pirate Scald, and I think there's 3 more. So Pirate Scald, deploy if there's rain on the opposite row, boost the lowest allied unit by 2. If there's storm on the opposite row, damage the highest enemy unit by 3 instead. Increase the duration of every rain and storm you spawn by 1 for the rest of the game. Wow. So that's huge for like rain decks, you know what I mean? Think about storm getting an increase, and think about the row being full, and think about Rio Hand triggering all that, and then think about the mermaids getting the boost off that. That's quite nuts. It reminds me of the Highland Warlord, but like in the rain sort of setup instead. You know, I don't think that this would ruin. I don't think this would ruin the archetype. I don't think that it would make it overtuned, just because, look, Human Pirate. Freya's Blessing, though, could be really good for this card. When you start throwing in Freya's Blessings on it as well, and then Bride of the Sea into Freya's Blessings, that's when this gets kind of wild. But then again, 5 provisions like a very difficult spot to fill with this card, because in Rain, I know because I've been playing Rain recently, there's a lot of like good 5-6 provision cards that you want to put, but then there's a lot of other top end cards that you want to put. So I think this card feels very balanced, just because I know it's expensive to fit in a deck like that, and there's other stuff you might want to have too. So I'm about it. I think that's fine. We got a Demon Wild Hunt, which is interesting because normally when you see Wild Hunt, we're thinking about cards that are devotion, right? We're thinking about Frost, essentially. So Volithmir, Demon Wild Hunt, neutral slash faction-based card. And I can't think of any other ones that are just like neutral and whatever hybrids, but this would be the first I can think of, really. Now, immunity, possess an enemy unit, so that's a new mechanic. If there's only one card left in your hand at the end of your turn, lock self. Okay. Possession, move an enemy unit to the opposite row and give it spying. If it already had spying, remove spying instead. At the end of the owner's turn, repeat the effect once, and then remove status. Possessed unit cannot be consumed. Possess an enemy unit. So we're just taking something of theirs and moving it to our side of the playing field, and we're okay with that for 8. Wow. It could be any card, right? There's only one card in your hand. Lock self. They can't even kill it. That's interesting. At the end of the owner's turn, repeat the status. Repeat the effect once. That's a pretty wild card, guys. It's like literally seizing something, kind of, but then giving it spying. And then you can't deal with this card because it has immunity. This one's a little toxic. I don't know. And we got the last one here from Steve. Shadow Inquisitor, Human Firesworn Cleric, Veil Prophet 2. Whenever a Firesworn Zealot is transformed into a Flaming Rose Footman, boost self and it by 1. So what they're saying is we get this card out there for 4 base power plus 2 coin. Let's just say 6. And then it's an engine. Whenever something's transformed, boost by 2, essentially, 1 on each. Boost self is nice, keep this going, and then boost that by 1. This could be good because we have the clerics, right? So you can transform zealots into rows with a cleric for 1 coin. And so whenever we do that, then we get 2 extra points, 1 on this and 1 on the actual rows itself. If we can keep this card going, that's a really cool engine. It's just about keeping this going, because when I see this card come down, I'm removing it. And then all this other stuff doesn't matter, right? Because 4 base power is pretty easy to snipe. But that's it, guys. I had a lot of fun. I hope to be able to do this one again. And if you guys are interested in making some cards, join the conversation. We got a Gwent card creator. I pinned basically the website that lets you do it. people talk about some ideas together here, and they sort of rate the ideas, and then when there's a finished thread, they post the finished thread, and then I come in and I see that. So yeah, really good way to add to the community. I think that maybe devs will eventually see this and maybe take some great ideas inspired from you guys. And yeah, it's definitely a new conversation to have when the game gets stale before patch day. So that's pretty much it. We'll see you guys very shortly with the patch notes update for 10.5. And I'm just going to say it one more time. These cards aren't real. Okay. So I don't know when they're coming. They're not coming. They're just not real yet. They're fantasy. Okay. But yeah. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And later today. Take it easy.